California. Shakespeare is the only named author in the K through 12 core curriculum. So we've kind of decided that Shakespeare's our dude. And he's like, your enemy's in the room. Now, don't worry about it unless it's in striking distance. And what is unfortunate is that there are some Black folk who perhaps are not standing in their excellence in this moment. They have not come to their full height in their excellence. Primarily white supremacy, I would argue. Right? Shakespeare was a radical adapter. He didn't write an original story. These are all borrowed storylines that he adapted.
Hello, how are you? My name is Whitney Reed, and I am the host of Celebrating with Play On, Black Excellence Juneteenth edition, featuring the wonderfully talented Dawn Monique Williams. I am here on behalf of Play On Shakespeare, where the mission is to enhance the understanding of Shakespeare's plays and performance for theater professionals, students, teachers, and audiences by engaging with contemporary translations and adaptations. I am here because we're here to celebrate Juneteenth. We know that Juneteenth is Liberation Day for those enslaved Africans in Galveston, Texas, who were communicated with and told that they were officially free and could now journey off into a new space of figuring out who they would become in a new and foreign land. We wanted to start this conversation off with someone who could help us define Black excellence, and someone who was dedicated to diversifying and deepening an understanding of the Shakespearean canon. And so we reached out to Dawn Monique Williams, and she was able to come and have a chat with us. So welcome, Dawn. How are you?
I'm well, Whit. How are you?
I am good. I am well. I'm sitting in front of you, and and we have, have had such a great opportunity to get to know each other over the years. And so this is like a bit of a family reunion in preparation for Juneteenth. So I'm loving
Definitely.
this moment. Yeah, so I know a lot about you. Everyone may not know a lot about you. Can you just kind of pinpoint who you are? What is it that you do? What makes you special? I mean, I can always say, Dawn, you are an incredible director. You are an incredible mother. You are a great friend and daughter, and lover of all things theater. But how do you define yourself?
Great question. How do I define myself? Well, it's true. I'm Dawn Monique Williams, and I use the she series for my pronouns. And right now I am living in an intergenerational family home in what we call it Oakland, California. It's the homeland of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. And I'm the Associate Artistic Director at Aurora Theater Company, which is located in Berkeley, California. And it's true, all that you said. I'm a theater professional. I'm primarily a director, but also an educator, a non-traditional scholar. I'm definitely a mom. That is my greatest accomplishment to date, and a daughter, and the sibling, and a pet parent too. Yeah, and I'd also say that I'm deeply invested in liberation movements and the role that theater arts can play in the work of abolition.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about how your journey with theater started, and then how you came into contact with Play on Shakespeare?
Absolutely. I started in theater actually really quite young. When I was, I think about 6, I saw a production of The Wiz at Paramount Theater right here in Oakland, California. And I didn't know to say like, oh, Mom, I want to be an actor. That isn't what I understood of it, but I was like, whatever is happening up there on that stage, I want to do that. So from a very early age, I was in dance class, I sang in chorus. And then in my early teens, I started doing plays, like actual acting. And then right out of high school was a drama major. Thought I was gonna, be on Broadway. And over time in my early 20s, I sort of shifted gears a little bit and started focusing on directing, and have been a director ever since. So it feels wild to say, but I've been a director for over 20 years. And I first came to OSF as a patron in 2012, and then began my tenure at OSF as a directing fellow staff in 2013. And so while I was not there for the kind of pilot of Play On, when they sort of tested that first translation with Timon of Athens, I was there at the big announcement when Play On became a sort of formal thing, and they were gonna commission these 30 playwrights and 30 dramaturgs to do these modern adaptations. I was in the meetings with Louis and the Hits when they came up with the name Play On. So I was there before it even had a name, when we were still calling it the Shakespeare Translation Project. And I have been a huge fan of it from the onset, and have worked on maybe a half dozen or so of the translations in various points of their iterations.
That's beautiful. And so why do you work with Play On Shakespeare? Like, what is their relevance to you? What is their relevance to the world at large in translating the works of Shakespeare?
Well, first of all, I believe that if we are going to be ambassadors for Shakespeare, which we are not beholden to do, no one is beholden to do that, but sort of culturally in the West, we have decided that that's what we're going to do. Shakespeare is the only named author in the K through 12 core curriculum. So we've kind of decided that Shakespeare's our dude. And I remember when I was in my K through 12 growing phase and feeling like Shakespeare was not my dude. And in fact, that Shakespeare was a tool to make me feel less than, unintelligent, not well read. So I was actually really anti-Shakespeare in my youth, until I came to a place of approaching it as an actor, as a young performer in my 20s. And of course, I fell in love with it in that context, and have been an ambassador for it ever since. And so when I was talking with Louis and learning about what the intentions of Play On Shakespeare was, I thought, this is brilliant. Because if we want to be good ambassadors for Shakespeare, we have to continue to do the thing that it is Shakespeare himself did, which is make these plays relevant and resonant for the contemporary audience that we're sharing them with, right? Shakespeare was a radical adapter. He didn't write an original story. These are all borrowed storylines that he adapted, that he tweaked some things. He exercised the use of his dramatic imagination. Why should we not? And then the parameters that are put on Play On actually really intend to do the plays themselves no harm. So I thought, if the younger version of Dawn, who had to read, Midsummer or Henry V in high school, had a side-by-side, had a companion version that was written by Marcus Gardley or Luis Alfaro, are you kidding me? I would have lit up. I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is gangster. This is hip hop. This is like, oh, Shakespeare is my dude. I would have felt that way. So I've believed this whole time really in the power of Play On, because it means no harm to the plays, and it's actually about removing barriers of access. And that is sort of my single mission in being a Shakespeare scholar and practitioner, is to remove those barriers of access so that anyone who is desirous to locate themselves in the work, and not everyone needs to, not everyone should. I'm not that person who's going to say we all need Shakespeare in our lives, but if you want it, there is a pathway for you. And I really believe that. And I think Play On has a mission that's in alignment with helping people who kind of want to be like, what's this about? Why does everybody say it's so important? Can locate themselves inside the works that way.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting that you spoke about being able to speak up in the room. And I think it's interesting how we characterize what Black excellence is. You know, we're here because it is Juneteenth. We want to talk about what Black excellence looks like throughout the year. And we knew that this would be a great time to begin the celebration of what Black excellence looks like. What does Black excellence mean to you? How do you use Black excellence in your everyday life?
Yeah. Well, first, the terms are synonymous for me, right? Blackness is excellence. I believe that excellence, grace, compassion, smarts, resiliency is embedded in the DNA of anyone of the African diaspora. We would not be here to have this conversation if it were not. What is unfortunate is that there are some Black folk who perhaps are not standing in their excellence in this moment. They have not come to their full height in their excellence for any number of reasons, circumstances, primarily white supremacy, I would argue. So yes, we may not all be at our full height in our excellence, but I think that the potential for excellence is in us. It's in our DNA. We contain the sun, literally, right? Like literally, we are lit. And I just saw like some study that actually said the Black woman contains all the mitochondrial DNA to legitimately be the mother of civilization. It don't get no more excellence than that. That's excellence. That's it right there. Like, are you kidding me? So for me, it really is synonymous that Black is excellent. Blackness is excellent. Being of the African diaspora is excellent.
Mm-hmm. Who holds you to your own standard of excellence? Who holds you accountable?
Number one, my daughter, who is soon to be 20-year-old young woman. Her birthday's in September. And these young people they are not playing. They are smart. They are well-read. People like, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm at that sort of like, yes, I have technology. I use technology, but I'm still a little suspect of it. Or like, these young people have cracked the code on this technology. So information, they have the capacity to upload so much information. So just in addition to being like the most amazing, beautiful, stunning, full of grace, most gorgeous smile human I ever know, she is also a cultural anthropology major. So it's actually her area of study is to be engaging with cultures, linguistics, art, cinema. So she teaches me so much about myself, about the world we live in. I mean, she exposes me to so much. She knows so much about Aboriginal peoples across the globe. So she definitely really holds me accountable. And then, I think my peers hold me accountable. I think my sister friends hold me accountable. And they let me know when I'm having those moments of not standing in my excellence. They pull my coattail for sure.
Right. Do you ever think about your friends, your sister friends, your children as mentors? And if not, do you have mentors?
I absolutely do. And I believe in mentorship as a 360 thing. I know sometimes we think of mentorship as like a top down. So certainly I have my elders that are my mentors, people who are further along in their careers, who are my mentors, people who have the experiential wisdom to mentor me. But I absolutely can be mentored from people who are younger than me, whose experiences are different than mine. I really do believe that for any relationship to be reciprocal, it has to be reciprocal. To have a relationship, it has to be reciprocal. So I certainly do think that my daughter mentors me. If I use some language that's not appropriate, anymore, we've grown away from that. She says, hey, we don't say that anymore. We've grown away from that. If I slip into some sort of unconscious bias or something, she says, hey, mom, really? You going out like that? I mean, like, she really hits me to that. And my students, when I'm teaching, they teach me so much. So absolutely, I believe that you can have mentors that are older, younger, peers. I have a lot of friends that are my mentors. And I've been gifted to have mentors at every step of my journey. Many of them have been my educators throughout college and grad school. But certainly I found some of my greatest mentors right there at OSF, who I also would think of very much as sister friends, but who had something that I knew to be in their light, I would be made better by.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, having been at Oregon Shakespeare Festival and the level of mentorship that you experience day in and day out. And so your peers, your colleagues become your mentors. I'm kind of interested for you, because you are in the artistic realm. You are a director, and just wondering, being at OSF, being in the industry, have you had mentors that specifically help you navigate your thoughts, your thought process, your artistic excellence when it comes to Shakespeare? And like, how do you connect your Black excellence to the artistic work when you're working with the canon?
Absolutely. I would say that like 3 people immediately come to mind when I try and put Shakespeare and Black excellence together in a container. And one of them is my grad school advisor, Gilbert Macaulay, Gil Mac. He's not even really a Shakespeare dude. Like, he's done it, he's seen it done, but he gave me the space. He was like, I don't know why you love it so much, but okay, that's what you want to do. So he gave me the space when I went to him and said, if I do not tackle Shakespeare while I am in grad school, no one will let me do it in the world. And so he created that space for me. And in doing that, he also taught me many, many lessons. He's a tall brother, right? And so I just remember very distinctly going to him, probably in tears, really, really upset one day because somebody had said that I was the most resistant student they had ever encountered, the most disrespectful and resistant student they had ever encountered. And I was the only Black student in the class, only Black woman. So,
Right.
There's code in what this professor is saying. And Gil was like, I don't worry about it unless it's in striking distance. And I said, Gil, I'm not sure I could move like you move. Like, if my enemy's in the room, I need to know. And he's like, your enemy's in the room. Now, don't worry about it unless it's in striking distance. And so that I have just really, that sort of sense of like calm that he can command is one thing that has been really important to me. And then as I was deeply in my thesis and deeply investigating the intersections between a Black aesthetic, a Black theater aesthetic, and Shakespeare, I discovered Dr. Ayanna Thompson, who is now like somebody I just hold so dear and hold so much admiration for. I consider her a friend. She has been a beacon to me these many years, because before I ever knew her, I was reading all of her books. I was Googling her, and then I had the opportunity to meet her at OSF, and we've just stayed in touch. Talk about a mentor. I've had the good fortune, even just during this theater shutdown, to be in such nutritious conversations with Ayanna that I'm indebted to her for her body of work, for her continued interrogation of Shakespeare, for her open ear and open heart when I'm having a crisis. And then, of course, Sharifa Joka right there at OSF, who, again, like Gil was kind of like, Shakespeare's not my dude, but you want to do it. So how are you? So what you gonna do, right? And Sharifa really being that voice in my ear who was like, you are a force in the American theater. And you are here now, you are at OSF, and you have the keys. So how are you opening the door? How are you leveraging this privilege? How are you leveraging this opportunity to do the most good towards racial justice, towards economic justice? There's so many things that Sharifa really got me thinking about in terms of my positionality as a Black Shakespearean in the larger theater landscape. So those three people come immediately to mind when I think of Shakespeare and Black excellence.
I think it's beautiful. I have not had the chance to meet Gil, but I know that Ayanna Thompson is a board member with Play on Shakespeare. And I've had the amazing privilege to study under Sharifa Joka. So I absolutely agree with you. I'm interested when you receive a script or when you seek out a script, what is your process for producing something on stage that resembles the experience of your people and bringing in, your lived experience to Shakespeare in a way that we may not have ever seen it on stage prior?
Yeah, that's a really great question. My approach to any play, Shakespeare or otherwise, modern, contemporary, living writer, not living writer, you do that first read, and that first read is just teaching you basics, theme, characters, relationships. And then as I do a second read, there's like three things that sort of happen simultaneously for me, which is I'm checking for which character invites me in, which character sort of becomes my tour guide through the world, sort of is my personal narrator, not necessarily the narrator of the play, but like who am I kind of like seeing this world through? And then the next thing is really like, and what is the music of the world? And often, because I don't even mean for this to sound like some, like esoteric and meditative, like quite literally, okay, great. So you have this character, right? Take Romeo and Juliet, for example. The last time I directed it, that character for me was really Benvolio. I was like, Benvolio is opening this play for me. Benvolio is bringing me in. Benvolio is my tour guide. What is Benvolio listening to on their iPod? What is Benvolio's playlist? And it's very linked to like hints or clues in the text, but it's also 100% tied up into my lived experience, right? So it is within the realm of music that I know, that I've been exposed to, that I've heard. And then the other thing is what does it look like if it were a dance, which is also something I learned from Gil. So what does it look like if it were a dance? And those three things are kind of blending and melding, like intersecting and pulling themselves back apart. And that is how I arrive at what I guess people call a concept. I don't like the word concept, but my sort of approach or worldview for a play. So what that often means is that I hear soul music, I hear gospel, I hear R&B, I hear some pop. So already so much cultural influence comes that way just because I hear Black music, or certainly music that is African derived, even if the artists performing it aren't Black. But we still know, right? But Black excellence, jazz, that's us. The blues, that's us. Bluegrass, that's us. Banjos, that's us. But so often music is shaping so much of what I'm building, and then I'm looking for analogies in terms of where does that music fit, because it's like the music I listen to is not Renaissance England music.
Oh, you
So
don't
I'm
listen to
looking.
that on Spotify? That's not your favorite?
That is not what is on my Spotify. Not today. I'm listening to a lot of Jasmine Sullivan right now. That's what I'm listening to. um, but so certainly I've done, the Merry Wives at OSF that I directed opened with Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody, because as I was reading the play and I was thinking about Anne Page, because that was the character for me, and I was like, what is she listening to, and what is the invitation into this world? What would it look like if it were a dance? And we open with I Want to Dance with Somebody, straight up. I did a As You Like It, where we had a whole dance break to Beyonce's Your Love Got Me Looking So Crazy Right Now, because I was like, that's the Forest of Arden. Forest Arden got these fools looking crazy right now. Romeo and Juliet had some John Legend, some Maxwell. It was all in there. And these are decisions that I arrive at with a full creative team, design staff. I'm not dictating it, but I would definitely say that music and song and dance is certainly a primary vehicle for how my cultural heritage shows up on the stage, especially in Shakespeare plays. And then for me, casting is really important. I'm not really that interested in monoracial work unless it's specifically written for all Black casts. Mm-hmm. So if it's an August Wilson written for all Black cast, I'm all the way down, right? Dominique Morisseau, like that, I'll do that. But if it's a Shakespeare, a Greek, Moliere, anything else, I'm not interested in a monoracial cast. Mm-hmm. Certainly not a monoracial white cast. And then allowing the space for those actors to bring their full selves to the work too, and not ask them to be assuming a white neutrality or to be playing white characters. That you do not show up as white in the room. I do not expect you to perform whiteness. So what do you need from me as the director? What do you need from the room? What do you need from the production to support you in being your full authentic self, and bringing your own cultural sign and symbols to the work?
Right. And it's interesting that you have just done so much work in the industry, whether it's on the canon or whether these are contemporary productions. I'm kind of interested in understanding what your process is for when you receive pushback, only because you've worked in so many different spaces across the country, and as understanding of self grows, especially for those who are related to the colonizer, or may have unconscious bias of what a Shakespearean director looks like or should produce on stage. How do you deal with that pushback when you receive it?
That's a great question, Whit, because I do receive it. There are gatekeepers. There are people who believe that they are the authority on Shakespeare production. And very often I am responsible to white male artistic directors who have their own sort of vision for how these plays should be done, or certainly feel that they know best how their audience will receive these works. And so if I'm being honest with you, this is still like a growth edge for me. In 2017, early 2018, I decided to take a step back from classic work. I decided to take a step back from Shakespeare because I was not allowed to be the cultural authority in the room. And not that I ever need to be the authority in the room. I actually believe in the like collective wisdom of whoever is making the play. But to feel like I was being somebody's alibi or diversity hire for some white man to execute a vision by proxy, so using me to execute a vision. So I actually stepped back from classic works, and I did a Shakespeare in 2019, but between 2017 and now, I have not directed any Shakespeare except for the one, and it's only been, honestly, over the course of this theater shutdown that I have had the space, the brain space, to sort of make sense of where I am emotionally with that. I've been invited to many conversations on Shakespeare and race during this shutdown. Louis sort of hinted at that when we were just like in the green room, that I've been on a number of panels to talk about being a Black Shakespearean. And so this time of not practicing theater, certainly in the way that we're used to in the live moment in the room together, has really given me opportunity to understand how I feel about gatekeepers, and how I will not be held hostage by gatekeepers, how I need to be presumed the cultural authority in the room if I'm directing a classic play from my world view. And Louis provided you with a quote about my Shakespeare tattoos. And one of them is "Non sans droit," which is the motto on the Shakespeare family crest. And it means not without right. These plays belong to me. They are my cultural inheritance. They are held in the public trust. I can do what I want with them, same as anybody else. So if some person of a different race or gender persuasion than me wants to set Pericles on the moon, then why can't I explore Pericles very intimately as a play about the African diaspora? I'm telling you, these people should call me, because my Pericles would be so lit. If you just read Pericles, it is right there. This Pericles is so, like, Black people know this. We read Pericles and we're like, this is about this is us. This is the journey of leaving home. This is crossing seas. This is being separated from loved ones. This is being sold into bondage and slavery. This is reunification. This is, if we can do the Star Wars Pericles, we can do the African diaspora Pericles. And if you are a white artistic director, you have to let me be the cultural authority on that. And you have to ask me, what are the additional resources you need to achieve that vision? The same way you would ask the director who, wants to do the gender swapped Taming of the Shrew, what resources they need to achieve that vision. So I'm just not really here for humoring gatekeepers anymore. And I recognize that it may mean I never get hired to do another Shakespeare after they watch all these panels I've been on. But I'm telling you that Pericles would be lit.
So we heard it here first that you're ready. Shameless plug, Play On is actually working with Next Chapter Podcast as they are exploring Pericles through voice. So
yes, with Keith David, are you kidding me?
It's amazing. It is amazing. So we're really excited. Play On is very excited about the work that they're doing with Next Chapter Podcast. Pericles is out. Macbeth is now out. Many great things.
I've been listening. I'm excited about that.
I know you have. I know you have. Download. Are you more Spotify? Are you Apple Music? Where do you?
I'm definitely Spotify on 100. Cannot even lie about it.
Okay. Question: how do you stand in your power? Like I heard you say, which I'm going to take. One of your professors, Gil, said, "Don't worry about it unless they're within striking distance." I'm going to take that motto like forever. My question is, on day in, day out, when you see what's going on in the world, how do you stand in your power in order to go into that physical room or now that virtual room and speak your truth as you do today?
Yeah, well, that's not always easy. So, I don't want to like sit up here and be on my Brene Brown and all of that, because it's not always easy, because there are days that I feel completely defeated. There are days that I feel like demoralized. There are days when I feel like I kowtowed There are days when I, feel like I was a doormat and didn't stand in my power. It is about developing, for me, a personal practice of defining my center and knowing what it means to come back to that center, to acknowledge the days when I feel like I failed or I didn't stand up for myself or I didn't advocate. And if it is within my power time frame to try and make a correction of that, to go back and say, hey, when this thing happened, I felt this way. That's not my vibe. How can we do better next time? Right. But also just going back to that idea of excellence being encoded in my DNA, and dispelling this pipeline myth that people keep talking about. We got to get him in the pipeline. We got to get him in the pipeline. I believed that for so long, and I did all the things. Whitney, I have 2 master's degrees. I have multiple fellowships. I have worked at the largest rotating regional repertory theater in this country. What? Are you kidding me? I hear Sharifa in my head. You are a force. So sometimes it's just coming back to that like excellence is encoded in my DNA. Do not be afraid. Show them who you are. And if they don't like it, that's on them. Because for any gatekeeper, anybody that is like, too much to this, she's, we don't want that Whitney Houston in our Shakespeare, whatever. There's somebody else that's like, yes, boo, yes. So grow, not just go, but grow where there's love. Grow where there's love. And so that is something that I've had to hold on to. Like I said, when I stepped back in 2017, from doing classical work, I decided I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I do intention setting and goal setting for every year. And I remember very specifically 2018, I wrote it down, grow where there's love. So theaters that were inviting me back, even if the pay wasn't, the most that theaters that were inviting me back, that had treated me, with kindness, with love, that had been good for me. I was like, I'm not going to make it about money. I'm going to go where there's love. Absolutely. Theaters that were inviting me back that maybe they hadn't offered me that, not going to be able to do it.
Right.
So,
And that takes a standard of knowing who you are, what you're capable of, what you can handle, what you can't, what's not serving you.
Yeah. It's not a perfect practice, right? There are days where I'm like, oh, why'd you give that up? Why didn't you say something? But it, it is a practice. It is a practice, right?
Okay, quick little 5-minute game for you. Imagine that you got to cast and direct your favorite Shakespeare piece. What show would you do? And if you could only choose from top musicians, actors, and when I say top, I mean folks that may be well-known names to people who are viewing this podcast all around the world. So what would the Shakespeare show be? And then how would you cast it?
Okay, so first of all, my favorite Shakespeare ever is Romeo and Juliet. But also, I'm feeling really ready and eager to tackle A Measure for Measure. So I have the list of the things I'm ready to do. But when you ask me that question, all I can think about is this assignment that I did when I was a sophomore in college, all the way back. And I took a comedy class. And we were asked this question. And it didn't have to be a Shakespeare play, but I chose a Shakespeare play. And I chose Comedy of Errors. And my dream casting, dig this, would be if the 2 Antiphili were Denzel Washington and Blair Underwood, and the 2 Dromios were Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Now, this is right after the first Bad Boys came out. This was right after Bad Boys 1 came out. And I was like, who are the 2 most finest Black men? And I was like, Blair Underwood and Denzel Washington. And who are the 2, who has such good chemistry? And it was Martin and Will Smith. And so it's 20 some years later, but you asking me that question is like, that still would work. That still would be such a great cast.
Oh, I think it's time. I think let's manifest this, put this out into the universe, call the gods down, all the things.
But with Romeo and Juliet, the last time I directed it in 2017, Adriana Mitchell played Juliet, and she was a light. And maybe in 2017, people didn't know Adriana. I know you did, but maybe other people didn't. But now Adriana is a freaking star, right? She's on Snowfall. I mean, if I could get on her calendar, me and Adriana, we could go. And you know who played Romeo? Sadiq Sanderson, who is on the Wu-Tang series on Netflix. So they're stars now. They weren't then, but maybe if they'd have me, we could do it again.
Ooh. That sounds like an amazing cast. Both of those casts, actually. And I want to see those shows. It's coming. I feel it. I feel it all around me. I have not had the opportunity to witness a show that you've directed, as far as I know, at this time in my life. So I'm excited for the world to open back up, and I'm excited to see what you direct and place on stage. I think I'm very excited about that work. Okay, we're gonna finish it up, but I am really interested if you could talk a little bit about your current work and what you're working on, what is in the works. I know directors don't often like to talk about what's in the works until it's official, but if you could give us a little peek into your world.
Yeah. Well, I am directing a production of Dance Nation coming up in the fall. That's Claire Barron's play about a competitive dance studio, and all the 13-year-old girls are played by grown women of varying ages. So that's coming up. But I'm right now in the thick of development on a new play with this writer Cleavon Smith, who's based in the Bay Area, and he's writing this play. That's what we're waiting to find out. Title. And we just did a developmental reading, and we'll be doing a full production at Aurora next season. And he started writing the play sort of before the shutdown, and it was about cancel culture and this idea of where we sit with cancel culture. And there's this public intellectual who kind of believes in a more radical middle in terms of activism. And then, all those protests broke out over the summer in response to the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so he added this additional frame to the play. So it's set at Cal Berkeley, and a member of the Black Student Union is met with police violence. And so the students of the Black Student Union are calling for radical reform. And what the university does is bring in this Black author, this public intellectual, who's about this more let's have deep dialogues, and they're let's blow some stuff up. And so what's really beautiful, it's a 4-character play, and what's really beautiful is that it's really framed around these intimate dialogues between these group of Black characters of different generations who are really trying to unpack what it means to be an activist, what it means to be radical, how a younger generation views a radical spirit versus an older generation, and where there's synergy and where we just are not on the same page anymore with our elders. It's this very, very, very powerful play that he's written, and I'm really excited to be the first director to kind of help him birth this very potent story.
Beautiful, beautiful. Dawn Monique Williams, thank you so much for coming today virtually. We really appreciate it. We're so excited that you are the first to speak on Black excellence as you celebrate with Play on Shakespeare in celebration of Juneteenth 2021. So thank you so much for being here. For people that want to follow you, what are the best ways that they can reach out to you?
Sure. I have a website, dawnmoniquewilliams.com. Fine. I'm on the Insta at DMW_directs. I'm on the Twitter at DMW_directs. I gave up Facebook in the run up to the election and realized my life was much better without it. So don't bother trying to find me on on Facebook. But I'm on TikTok, and and I host a bi-weekly talk show with the theater that I work at, Aurora Theater. So we have a YouTube if people want to see me run my mouth some more.
All right.
Whitney, thank you for having me. Oh, it's just been so great.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming to experience and celebrate with Play On Black Excellence Juneteenth edition 2021. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.